Welcome back to the You Are a Severance podcast with your host, Callie Thomas, and myself, Rodnesha Green. We're about to jump back into part 2 of the Severance pilot script, Mr. As you may recall, Act 2 ended with Mark finally finding that hidden room that Helly had told him about, as well as the tape that, in her words, will quote-unquote explain everything. We all know the number one rule of Lumen is gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. So will Mark actually find the answers that he's been looking for? Let's just jump right on in and find out. Here we go. Well, guys, we are now heading into Act 3 of our script for the pilot, and we start by going back in time. So we get a flashback, and it says 5 days earlier. That is the text crawl that we get across the screen, so they've made it clear to everybody that it is 5 days prior to what's going on the severed floor, as we just read. Anything interesting to you in this moment, Callie? We're basically at Mark's place. We're not at Mark's place. We are in Mark's bedroom, which is inside his sister's place.
Right.
So Mark is living with his sister at this point.
Yeah.
Which is not how he is in the show.
Which is another thing that makes me feel like they kind of just used this in making the new pilot. They kind of just used this as backstory in their brains. Like, this is just character development, right? Because I think know that at some point he did live with them for a little bit before he started working at Lumen and got his own place, because he lives in Lumen housing in the show.
Right.
But in between him like losing his previous job and whatnot, he lived there for a little bit. So this was another thing that made me think like, oh, maybe we're just getting his backstory here. Like, maybe it's not different, it's just not discussed.
Just filling in. Yeah. I agree. They probably did use it as like, okay, this is premise of building up this character of Mark. It would make sense that he was living with his sister for a period of time. It would also make sense to develop the relationship between him and Rickon, and how there's just like this
tension,
weirdness, you know. And it could be one of those weird things where your relative is staying with you and you don't really want them there, but it's like your wife's brother and I gotta let him stay here, and trying to act hospitable, but really I kind of just want you gone, you know, like that might be some of the rifty weirdness between them. Let me tell you something. When I read this scene, all I could think about was how you mentioned that Mark is using Severance to be a functional alcoholic, or to function in his alcoholism because he can't function otherwise. Because I was just like, oh my gosh, this man really can't function. At this point, guys, in the script, they're describing Mark. He's living with his sister. That's not the worst thing in the world. But part of why he's living with his sister is he cannot find a job. And it's not like, oh, I'm doing my best and no one's just giving me a chance. It's like, I can't function. I just want to lay around and drink and be sad all day. And then I realize, oh, I can't do that. I gotta work and pay bills and get a job. But then the thought of getting a job makes me want to be sad and sit at home and drink all day. You know, so like, it's just this round robin of him just not being able to function as an adult. And I just kept thinking about what you said.
Yeah, it's really tragic.
It is. It's pretty awful. So we get descriptions for Devin and Rickon, which their descriptors are pretty much how they are in the show. For Devin, it says she's 30 and many, many, many months pregnant. And that's all she gets. That's all she gets. And then for Rickon, it says he's 40 in a silk robe and androgynous glasses. And I just was like, yeah, that checks out.
I boxed androgynous glasses because we're probably about to spend too much time on this, but explain that to me, because I was really trying to think about how gendered really are glasses. And I feel like, with the exception of some very iconic styles of glasses, for the most part, glasses are already androgynous. And this was I don't know, maybe it was an ADH brain moment. I spent a little bit too much time on androgynous glasses and what they are and what that would look like, because Rickon in the show doesn't wear glasses. So I was trying to figure out what it would look like if a costumer and actually did it. I'm not quite sure.
For me, as a glasses wearer, I can see where there are some stylings and color choices that could be gendered. I mean, at the end of the day, glasses are glasses. The point is so that terrible people with terrible vision, or not terrible people, people with terrible vision can see less terribly. Sorry. And so for me, I was thinking, I didn't think too much about it, but just as you're bringing it up, me thinking about it, the first thing that came to my mind is like something artsy, like maybe he's got glasses that are kind of colorful or have like maybe a pattern, a girly pattern, quotes, to them. Like maybe he's got like the cat eye glasses or something that you usually see on women and not men. But again,
that makes sense to me for Rickon and the Rickon that we know.
Right.
But that's not androgynous. That's feminine glasses. That's glasses, right?
I mean, the only thing I can think is like there's also some glasses that maybe have like let's look at the ones that I'm wearing. Like some would probably consider these masculine frames because they're just like a matte black. They're very square on the face. But maybe he's got something that has like a structured frame, but maybe a flamboyant color. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I don't know. That's the only thing I can think for androgynous. It's like something that kind of flirts the line of being masculine looking, but not quite. That's the best I've got. That's the best I've got.
Okay.
That's funny that you spent that much time trying to determine. You're like, what are androgynous glasses?
I think I was so stuck on all the character descriptions too that I was like, and then we get Rickon, who is such a character, and we barely got anything for him in this description.
Right. That's true. The only thing I could think, yeah, it's like either it's something like that, or maybe just because he's wearing feminine glasses and it's on him,
yeah,
they're androgynous. I don't know. I mean, that's a Dan Erickson question. He must know somebody who's worn them glasses.
Right.
He's seen that on someone's face and he's like, huh, are they masked? Are they femme? I can't tell. Little of both. The main thing I just thought is like there's something kind of artsy fartsy about him, because that seems very Rickon of like,
yeah,
I'm gonna wear glasses that just like confuse people and make everybody question. And
they probably don't have lenses.
Oh, I'm sure they don't. I'm certain they don't. Maybe that's what makes them androgynous, is that they aren't actual functional glasses. They only serve one purpose, but not both. Anyway, sorry. We'll move on. So we get those descriptions for Devin and Rickon. Rickon and Mark have a bit of an exchange where, again, you can see kind of that scratchiness between the two of them where they tolerate each other. You still get a little bit of that moment like we do at the dinner party where Rickon's trying to sound very smart and educated, like he knows things. And Mark is like, that's not at all accurate. I think Rickon tries to quote Tolstoy. And later on, Mark talks to Devin. He's like, you know, that's not accurate, right? Like, you know, that's not what he said. And she's like, I know. So it is interesting, too. We do get more of a moment between Devin and Mark where Devin basically is like, I know this is how he is. Just, this is who I chose. I'm going to stand beside him. You know, it is what it is. Where it's just very blatantly, she knows he's full of BS.
Yeah.
And just lets him talk out his butt. For whatever reason, I don't know. And it's, again, even reading it in the script, they just seem so disjointed to me. I don't get where these two find commonality with each other.
Why
I don't get it.
Together? It doesn't make sense. How did these?
I'm like, is this a knocked up situation where like y'all hooked up, he got you pregnant, and now you're like, well, I guess we'll try to make it work, even though we're so very clearly not in the same space at all.
That's unfortunate.
Like, is this Katherine Heigl and Seth Rogen? Is that what this is? I don't get it. Anyway, but Devin's talking to Mark, and Mark is basically sharing how, you know, he's got an interview. Devin's trying to encourage him to actually go through with it. He seems very hesitant. Oh, this was an interesting line. Oh, wait, sidebar. Sorry, there's two things in this little last leg of the conversation. So Devin's talking to Mark and she says, you know, it's cool how you act like you're better than the man who's sharing his house with you. Mm-hmm. And Mark says, it's your house. So that was a moment where I was like, interesting. Yeah. Is it that way in the series? Like, is Devin really the one who's like breadwinner in this situation and Rickon's just along for the ride?
I mean,
I believe it.
yeah, it seems like it to me. Like that makes sense to me. I feel like Rickon is I don't know how successful his books really are.
I
I
mean,
wouldn't be
Callie,
surprised.
he's got 5 of them. This is his 5th book, clearly.
That don't mean they selling well. I mean, Devin might be self-funding the publishing for
Oh,
Rickon's
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Yeah, so that would make sense to me. And it's like more fuel to that contention, right? Like he's just mooching off of my sister. You know what I mean?
Right. And it also makes me wonder, what does Devin do? We haven't gotten that in the show or in the script. Like,
Mm,
what is she doing where she can buy a whole house for 2, 3 people
right. I
and
mean, 'cause
support his writing career, you
she's
know?
very pregnant. She's on maternity leave, so she must have good benefits too.
Right? What is Devin doing? Or are Mark and Devin from a wealthy family?
Oh, maybe.
Is that maybe a family home that she inherited?
Maybe. I mean, they're like, no, actually, I was going to say, where are they in? Do we know exactly what part of the country they're in on
Well, again, it's
the
a made up
show?
place.
Right. But like, where?
So
Because
they
here,
haven't said.
I guess I was feeling like they were somewhere back east just from the way it looks. And so I was about to say, like, maybe they are old money, but then I just remembered that the description in this script says they're on the Pacific Northwest. So I'm not sure actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I wonder if we're gonna get more clues to like what part of the country they're in.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll have to be on the lookout for that. I can't off the top of my head recall, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, if anybody
Wonder.
knows, if anybody has insight, let us know. We can't seem to think of that at this point. So, Mark is on his way to his interview. Mark is trying to be timely. He's trying to try this go round. Oh, if you heard a car just then, sorry about that. They're racing at my place too.
Oh Lord.
Mark is trying to try. He's trying to put some effort forward. On the way there, Mark is kind of like walking through, I think, in his head, like what the interview, how it's going to go, make sure he says the right things. That thing that we all do where it's like, let me kind of rehearse this in my head of how it's going to go. He'll ask me this, I'll answer with this. In that moment, while he's doing that, Mark hits something, feels a bump in the road, doesn't feel like a normal bump on the road. He gets out and realizes that there's a dead cat on the road. White cat just lying there. It's not moving. He also notices a large Victorian style house just off the road, and it's the only building in sight. So he's worried, uh-oh, this might be someone's cat.
Yeah.
But then he also notices what time it is, and he's just kind of like, I gotta get to this interview. I need a job so I can move out of my sister and brother-in-law's place. So he gets back in the car and he keeps on going. He does try to see if anybody is around. He honks his horn. He's hoping maybe somebody will come out so he can let them know, like, your cat's back there or whatever. But he's not making any real effort to, like, save this cat. He doesn't go check on it.
He waits until there's some rustling in the house, right? So he honks, the curtain starts to move a little bit, and then he's like, okay, that person is going to come check on this cat. And then he leaves.
And then he's just like, okay, now I'm gone. Yeah.
Gotta go.
So we don't know at this point, what's going on there. If this cat survives, we don't know. At this point, we have moved to Crazy Eagle Video, and we realize that Mark is trying to get a job at a video store. Again, old tech alert.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get a job at a video store. And not to say that those places don't still exist, kind of, sort of, but not really.
Right.
So I don't know if this is a small town thing where it's like they're in a small town and this is how everybody gets their media, the DVDs at the video store or whatever. Or if this is a different time period, we still don't know. It's not clear. But this is where we get introduced to the character of Seth.
Seth. That's where the name came from.
Who the name will later be attached to Mr. Milchek. He will not be Frank in the show. He will be Seth. So this is the remnants of Seth, the video store manager, who is described as being 25 and mustached. This is another reason that I'm like, again, like the mustache on Milchek in the show, I'm like, did they try to smush the two together?
Right. Is Seth Frank Milchek outie?
I just thought that.
But
It just came to my brain where I was like,
different in age, though.
True. That's a good point.
But maybe.
Maybe. Maybe just their demeanor makes them appear older and younger. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But then that also means Milchek's got 2 jobs, and that's got to be a lot.
Right. Is he only working at the video store at night? Because he's at the. Okay, let's not go down that road because
We won't go down that road.
that's silly. Okay.
So they have the interview. It starts. Seth is basically talking about how he's got to free himself up because he's going to massage school and it's going to be a huge commitment.
Seth has plans and dreams.
Seth is trying to make his way up in the world. He's trying to heal people. He can't be at this video store all day. He needs an assistant, someone who can help. So he's checking all the, the usual job interview questions by Mark. What's your schedule looking like? Do you realize what the job is? You realize what the pay is? Because he's looking at his resume, and this is where we do get clear, definitive mention that Mark was a professor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, you used to be a professor. Are you sure you're okay with the pay? Mark's like, yep, I wouldn't be here if I weren't. And sidebar, I gotta say, it's a slightly annoying question to get in an interview. If I'm here at this job, I know what it pays. I know what I'm looking at. I must be here for a reason, which is that I need this job. So don't ask me if I am okay with the pay. I've already made my peace with that. Like, that's one of the most annoying questions that I see in job interviews where someone's like, oh, well, this is outside of your usual blah, blah, blah. Are you going to be okay with? It's like, I wouldn't be here if I weren't.
Right. It's like
clearly I would prefer to get paid more, but if I could get a job that paid me more, I'd be there.
Right. Clearly, my life circumstances have led me here for a reason.
Right. I just hate when people ask that, like, oh, well, this is a step down for you. You do realize that this is not. Yeah, I know. I was a professor. I was there. I collected the checks. I know.
Right. No shit. No, really. I thought that I would make the same amount as being a professor, doing.
Clearly thought that you'd see that and want to pay me more.
People's DVDs. And I was going to say making sure they're rewound, but this is not even VHSs. This is DVDs.
No, it's not VHSs.
Like, what? What?
Anyway, I just had to get that out. So at this point, Mark is reeling about the cat. He's trying to address the interview and be present, but then he starts thinking about this cat, and then he not only thinks about it, but starts talking about it in the interview. This man self-sabotaged himself. He self-sabotaged. He didn't want this job. He didn't want this job. He starts talking about how he ran over a cat, and he doesn't know if it's dead or alive, and then he should have checked on it. It's basically rehashing this whole thing in the interview. And this guy's just like, I don't know how to answer you.
To Mark's credit, he was asked, what is a weakness that you have? And he was like, I don't fucking know. Maybe that I just ran over this cat and left the scene. The poor guy's like, so what do you want me to write down?
Oh, gosh. So Mark, I think at this point has his breakdown moment, and he's just like, I shouldn't be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm going to leave now. And he just pieces out, doesn't finish the interview. He's just like, don't give me this job. Good luck with your store. Bye-bye. So things get interesting at this point. From here, we head back to the road where the cat was left abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, when he gets there, he sees a blood stain, but no cat. And then he goes to look at the house, and he's probably thinking like, oh, this was their cat. They probably went and got it. So he walks up, knocks on the door. Callie, a little girl, 3 years old, opens the door.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark says, are your parents home? And the little girl says, someone just killed our cat. And Mark says, that's awful. And the little girl says, did you kill our cat? And Mark just stares at her and says, I did. Next thing you know, a woman steps in front of the door, and it's Harmony Cobell.
Dun, dun, dun.
In this universe, Harmony has a daughter?
Right?
Callie.
It's the woman's baby!
The woman's baby. Harmony is stealing babies. Who is this woman? Because that baby is 3 years old.
Oh my God.
Just hit me.
So has that woman been down in the archives for 3 years?
Maybe so.
Oh my God. She stole that baby.
She stole that baby. That's not her baby. Ah, I can't believe I didn't think about that when I was reading it.
It's like we just made that connection at the same time.
I'm like, where would she get this baby? Oh, Oh my gosh. Now I have even more questions.
Oh dear. Yeah, I really hope this pregnant woman comes back up.
You know, the other thing I thought of too, if this woman has been down there for 3 years, I thought to myself, what if they have a way to switch the severance on and off so that she never knows what day it really is?
Ooh,
And
yeah.
so it's like her innie has turns and her outie has turns, and they don't know, and they might think it's only been like, but so much time, but really it's been like years.
Oh, that's terrible.
This just gets wilder and wilder.
Yeah,
Wilder and wilder, people.
it's crazy. It is crazy. But anyway, let's get into the rest of this scene because if you think that's crazy, the 3-year-old is crazy.
I just
Just
had to, oh man, you're right.
wait.
You're right.
So, Mark goes in, Miss Cobell comes down, and they have this back and forth where he's trying to apologize for the cat, and she's almost kind of gaslighting him about like, you're not really sorry, you drove away, and like, why are you even here? And like, it's a very weird back and forth. I thought the whole exchange, like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, why are you even going through this with him? Like, what is this? And it made me think, and I don't know if maybe you were gonna mention this before, but I started thinking about the fact that, before this, up until this point, we're getting indications that training is months long, but this is only 5 days prior. So I was trying to
Thank
figure
you.
out, yeah, like, is he already severed at this point and doesn't know he's severed? Or is this like pre-severance training? But he would know if he's already met Miss Cobell before this and he doesn't recognize her here. So it was just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this exchange and the timeline.
I don't either. My first thought was just that they're lying to these people and telling them they've been training people for months, and then they're just grabbing them off the street like days before and throwing them in this place. I just straight up was like, oh, they just lied to her and they told her, oh, yeah, we've been training him for months. And really, they're like,
That's
he
true.
just signed up. He don't
Yeah.
know nothing.
Yeah. Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the true one. That one makes more sense than what I just said.
I mean, I like that there could be some like grooming aspect that happens when they select a person that they know they want to bring on board and they're like slowly ingratiating them. Because, I mean, we aren't at it yet, but she does talk about how she basically has been watching Mark.
Yeah.
And she knows, and we'll get to it, but she basically admits, like, I know things about you. So they've had their eye on him. So I don't know if there has been some way that they've been kind of like setting a scene, so to speak, to get him somewhat in a position to want to accept severance or start to recognize things that he wouldn't put anything like any much stock into, but it does tie into what they're gonna do on the culling team. I don't know. It could be like, oh yeah, we've been training them for months, and really it's like we've been brainwashing you for months and you didn't realize it. I don't know.
Right. That's crazy.
So, but yeah, but my first thought was just that, oh, they lied to them. Like, just lying. So, the pickle. Callie, rule number 1 at a stranger's house. Don't eat their food.
Right.
Don't drink their drinks.
Right.
You don't know this person. Y'all, Mark gets inside this house after Cobell is basically, like Callie said, gaslighting him about what's going on. She invites him in, offers him a pickle. He says no at first, and then she says, I grew them myself, I insist. First off, you don't grow a pickle, you grow cucumbers, and you turn them into pickles. So already lying. I would have been like, you're already lying. I'm not eating that pickle.
Don't grow pickles. I completely missed that when I read it. You don't grow pickles. Like, this lady is already lying. We're a liar.
It's already lying to me. I'm not eating this. So she insists that Mark have one, and Mark eats it. You guys, if you don't already know the rules of stranger danger, this is one of them. Don't eat anything a stranger gives you. You don't know them. You don't know them. And you're in a house in the middle of nowhere. This lady could be a serial killer. She might have threw that cat out there to bait you so she could kill you. You don't know.
Yeah.
Anywho. So this is the interesting thing, and I didn't want to bring it up when we went through the questions.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to tie back to it.
Yes.
So the questions this go round are similar, but there are some that are different. They ask, who are you? They ask you to like say where you're from. Then when you can't do that, they ask the question like, name a state or province anywhere in the US. He does say Delaware again.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth question they ask, what was the fourth question? Oh, fourth question they ask is, who is Mr. and how did he die?
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that at the top of the script, I was like, what the crap is that?
Yep.
Mr. And I'm thinking it's some anonymous man or something. Here's where we find out who Mr. is. Mr. is the name of Cobell's cat.
Mm-hmm.
So we realize, because she's talking to him about the cat, she says his name was Mr. Mark's like, that's a funny name for a cat. And she says, well, I suppose I'm funny. Good one, Cobell.
This woman is a mess.
Good one. So this is where we realize that this is the function of that question. In the show, the question we get is, what is Kier's favorite breakfast? Which is the thing that happened right before Helly got severed.
Yes.
Was mentioned to her. So the function is the same of like, here's a short-term memory question that you just were exposed to.
Right.
Could you possibly remember it or not? This time it's about the cat and how did he die. Mark doesn't remember what he answers in the sequence of questions at the top. The other questions, by the way, that Mark gets that isn't in the original sequence is, are you on any intravenous drugs?
Yeah, have you done any intravenous drugs today? What?
Yeah. It's like, what a strange question. I don't know why that one was in there.
Yeah.
I don't know why that one was in there.
I think it would have been interesting if it had been about like, have you had any drinks today? Because a pre-severed Mark.
Because he drinks, yeah.
Very much probably would have had drinks. He like starts his day off with that. But yeah, I couldn't figure out the drug one either.
The only thing I could think is if they were making some allusion to, do you remember the surgical procedure? Like maybe he had IV drugs at that point. Does that count? That's a stretch, but anyway, so those are the questions. And then the last question is the same as the last question in the show, which is, can you remember the color of your mother's eyes?
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to pivot there and we'll pivot back. So Cobell and Mark are still talking. They're discussing the cat and how Mark was brave enough to come back and, you know, approach her about killing her cat. And she says, this was the weirdest line. She asks Mark, how did it feel slaying the cat? And Mark says, slaying? Who says that? What a weird way to describe a cat death. And then Cobell says, I myself have only murdered small insects, nothing mammalian. Did it make you feel powerful? This scene, again, as Callie already indicated, just gets weirder and weirder. This exchange is strange.
It's just so twisted. It's like, what mind games are you trying to play with him right now with these questions?
And I don't know if it's a priming type of thing. Like, do you want to see if he has like this animal instinct to him that could serve you? Or I don't know what's going on here. And I'm sure Mark doesn't either. He's just like, what's with this lady? What a weird. And honestly, if the pickle wasn't enough, at this point when she said slaying, I would have been like, you know, it's been fun. I'm sorry about your cat. I'll send you some money, or I don't know. I got to get out of here. Like, but at this point, it is too late. Before, however, we get to the fact that she dosed this man with a pickle, Cobell asks Mark a question. And Mark does try to excuse himself and go home.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as he's trying to leave, Cobell says, do you feel horrible about Eleanor? And Mark stops and turns around. Clearly this name has registered with him. It says his legs are suddenly shaky. And then Cobell says, in the divorce proceedings, she accused you of, quote, acute workaholism. I've never heard it phrased that way. She sounds like a firecracker.
Mm-hmm.
So in this reality, Mark isn't widowed. He's divorced.
Just divorced.
And was apparently a workaholic, which is interesting.
To me, I was like, divorced, not dead. So that to me seems like a far less impactful reason for him to agree to severance, right? Because the version we get from Mark is he's just too grieved, too stuck in his grief to do anything functional.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, some people don't handle divorce well, but
True.
I don't.
True, but enough for you to. And I think the other thing too is that if she accused him of workaholism, like you're working so much you're not even home, then are you really taking the divorce that poorly? Because you already weren't really that attached to your wife if you were willing to spend more time at work than at home. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it just kind of lessens the impact of like why were things so bad that not only did you elect to do severance, but then you're drinking so much you can't function, you're
Yeah.
not able to hold a job. The impact just isn't there anymore. When I first read this line, I thought she said she accused you of acute alcoholism. I just read into that line. I thought it said
Yeah. I feel like,
alcoholism. And I
yeah.
was like, oh, now that would have been interesting of like, I'm leaving you because you're an alcoholic and I can't live with it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what causes him to spiral. And then maybe he feels like he can't live a life, like he can't get clean and sober, and the only way he could is to be severed. That would have been an interesting turn, like a new version of AA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
instead of workaholism.
Very, very extreme AA.
So yeah, that's not the turn they took with this one. So yeah, so this has affected Mark, and then all of a sudden he's not feeling so great.
Mhm.
He might think it's because of what she said, but then he's like, no, I don't think it is. And she's like, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I put drugs in that pickle.
Yes, I won't lie. There were drugs in the pickle. Again, I burst out laughing. I was like, this woman.
Harmony in this version is pretty dang funny. Like, she's got a wry sense of humor, and I'm for it. Kind of wish our Harmony Cobell was a little more in that vein. Like,
Right. And then what's really, really twisted is like as he's fainting and she's admitted that she's drugged him, she's like, I'm proud of you for coming back, Mark. That was very, very brave. Like another just little like gaslighty, like
mm-hmm.
last nail in the coffin, the cherry on top, like as you're
Right.
blacking
It was
out.
very, very brave, and now you're done
Right?
for.
It was
Like,
very, very brave. Subtext, very, very stupid.
oh, guys. So we're now in Act 4, which is the home stretch of
Woo.
this script. So this is where we get very, like, very Saw, very, whatchamacallit, what's that movie? Very Silence of the Lambs. Like, we're in a basement dungeon looking place. Mark is tied to a chair. He's been drugged. He's coming to. And then all of a sudden, he's just looking around. Everything looks crazy. He can't get away, and Harmony's just there, like, about to give him the villain spiel. And I'm just like, this script is so crazy.
Right. Right. No, it really is.
So she's got a shoebox in her hand. He's sitting at a chair at a table, and she realizes that he's up. I don't know if I did another scene read. I don't think I did for this one, but they have an exchange. Mark is like, let me go, which again, Callie, maybe this is priming for severance mode. Like, I want to get out. And it's like, no, but you can't leave.
But
And
you
I got to
can't.
tell you what's going on. And little by little, I'll tell you what's going on as I see fit.
I don't know.
Get used to it. Like, I'm priming your subconscious brain because when that goes through it on the severed floor, you'll be somewhat already ingratiated. But
Yeah.
she basically goes on to tell Mark that she heard the brakes after he hit the cat. She wrote down his plate number and looked him up as he drove away. And in that window of time between Mark leaving the cat, going, having his weird interview, and coming back, she found out the most about this man. She found out about his wife, about divorce proceedings, all the stuff that she mentioned happened in that little span of time.
Mm-hmm.
Then she basically says, hey, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that I work for an organization that's in the business of specificity.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like not knowing things. Then Mark says, what else do you know about me? And she says, I know you're brilliant. I know you were doing calculus at 9, that you took college classes at 11. I know you've struggled with focus your whole life, and that after your divorce, you spent most of the night standing on the Skagit Bridge begging yourself to jump. And then Mark says, no one knows that. And Cobell says, someone does. This lady, the audacity. Oh boy. So basically, she's pitching him on a job at this company while she's got him tied up to a chair and reading him to Phil. Like, just, oh man, I could not handle the scene.
Yeah.
And I just, again, the audacity of like, I'm going to pitch you this job. And here's the thing. Not a lot of people, it's kind of a tough sell, which is why I've got you handcuffed here, because I want you to hear the whole pitch before you walk away.
She's like, just, go along for the ride with me. It's going to be worth it when you get to the very end of it, but it's a little bumpy. Okay.
I feel like Cobell was like, listen, every time I try to sell someone on this job, before I even get to like the benefits, they're out the door. They hear severance and they just, I want to give the whole pitch. So I just realized that I have to drug people and drag them to my basement and chain them to a chair and then give them my elevator pitch.
Right.
And I find they're much more compliant in that capacity.
It's wild. It's wild. Yeah. It's a valid strategy once you read on and see how she illustrates what severance is.
Mm-hmm.
So she pulls a rat out of the box.
That's what's been in the shoebox.
Yeah. She's like, this is Miss. And she explains that her company has created a beacon that's implanted into Miss's brain. And let me just read it so you can get the full explanation. This beacon was built by my company. It broadcasts a hypersonar frequency, which activates a chip inside Miss's brain. When the beacon is on, Miss can only access memories from when it was on. When it's off, he remembers everything else. Does that make sense? So just in case it doesn't make sense, she flips the switch on the beacon, and then suddenly this calm, docile rat starts flipping out.
Mm-hmm.
And she continues on and says, now I should mention that when the beacon is on, I burn Miss on the belly with a soldering iron. So then she turns the beacon back off. Miss calms down, right? Because when the beacon is on, you have a rat that knows it's being tortured. And when the beacon is off, then the rat doesn't know. And it's just her pet again. And I was like, I have in all caps, torturing rats to test severance. What? This is wild.
Not only realizes that they're in a mode where they're being tortured, but recognizes who is doing the torturing.
Right.
So that's what's crazier, is that
right.
That rat sees her and knows she's the source of the torture, whether she's got the soldering iron or not. And then when the switch flips, they're best friends. She's nuzzling him and petting him. And I was just like, y'all, what did we say was core value number 000 of Lumen? Gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. Like, this is it.
Poor gaslit rat. Don't worry.
This is so awful. And it was almost weirdly tormenting to see it put in that capacity of like this innocent rat that does not know any better, does not have any way to escape their situation, and their whole life just has to live with seeing the same person in two totally different contexts and not know that one is experiencing extreme terror and torture and the other one has found like the Michael Jackson to their bin. I mean, what in the world?
This poor rat. I've never felt sympathy for a rat before now.
Me
this
neither.
Poor rat.
Except again when I listened to Ben from Michael Jackson.
No, but then also the fact that this is also a part of your sales pitch.
Right? I'm supposed to be like, sign me up, please.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what you're telling me is that you can be torturing me and I would never know it if I take this job. Who would sign up for that?
That right there is just a bad sales pitch. Don't show me. If anything, show me life could be even greater. Like, show me how in normal mode, I'm just a rat. But in flipped switch mode, I'm a rat who thinks I get a bunch of cheese and has a great home. And I don't know how you would do the reverse of it. But don't show me that I'm getting tortured and I don't realize it.
Yeah, it's a terrible pitch. I don't understand the reasoning behind it.
I don't either. So then, oh my gosh, just reading this, she's talking about how the rat is just screaming and screaming.
Yeah,
How sometimes it lasts an hour. It's awful.
truly.
So then she's like, anyway, I work at this company that is very revolutionary, and I'm prepared to offer you $500,000 to come join us. Forget what you just saw, or don't. Just know that there's a lot of money in it for you.
Bruh, what?
Now, I will say, when I saw the price tag, I was like, oh, now this might be why some people are willing to get their brain split.
This is
Half
true.
a mil.
This is true.
Listen, I don't know many college professors that are making $500,000 for work that they're conscious of.
Right. That's true.
If they're offering this to anybody who's electing for severance, shoot, if the janitor's making $500,000, sign me up.
I mean, it doesn't matter what job you're doing, right?
Right?
Because outside you get to spend that money and you don't know what you're doing.
Cash money. I wonder how the vacation days, the PTO is at Sever or at Lumen.
Right.
Sick policy, all that stuff.
Man, it's already shitty that they like don't get to experience their weekends, their nights and weekends. But can you imagine like, oh, your outie just went on a 2-week vacation and then you're coming back and everyone's like, man, you've been gone for a long time. And they're like, what?
So much happened.
Well, I guess I feel refreshed. I didn't get to do.
It's like I'm Tanner and
right? How sad.
Yeah. Oh, by the by, so this is more of Cobell's pitch. I'll read the rest of it. So she offers the $500,000 to come join them. She says the only condition is that you will receive a beacon of your own and your perceptual chronologies will be split. Between the hours of 9 to 5, you will have no knowledge of who you are or where you are from, only work memories. And in your outside life, you will know nothing of what you do for the company. The vital nature of the work requires such secrecy. By the way, she says, those cuffs are plastic. Gaslight! After she sat there and gave him that whole presentation, now she decides to tell you, oh, you could have left at any point. Those aren't real.
This bitch. Like, what? No, truly. I mean, if nothing else, this show knows how to like gaslight. It's just like
man,
gaslight after gaslight.
It is the fuel. Golly. I got so mad when I read that. I was just like, are you kidding me? And then he just like strongly pulls his arms up and I know he was pissed. I know he was just like, this whole time.
He's like, why didn't I try to get out of this sooner?
Oh my gosh. But that makes me wonder if, again, there's been some kind of priming that's already been taking place because he doesn't try to like, we see Mark in his any mode. He immediately tries to escape and is running as fast as he can and dodging security to try to get out of this building. In this moment when he's tied to a chair in a basement, he just sees the handcuffs and just is like, well, I guess I'm screwed. He doesn't even try. Right. He doesn't examine. He doesn't look around to see if there's any way out. He's just like, what the hell? And she's like, I'm so glad you're awake. I'd love to talk to you about a brand new position that we have available at Lumen Enterprises. Have you heard of severance? Let me tell you about the pros and cons of severance. Meet my rat miss. She'll explain. I wonder if at any point Miss became like a PowerPoint cartoon presentation of severance. Like, you might be wondering, what's severance? I miss the rat. Like,
that would be amazing. And if they did something like that, it would be like old style cartoon, like the at the movies popcorn and snacks movie.
It'd be like the equivalent of Miss Minutes from Loki, right?
Yes, exactly.
Aye.
Oh, that would be great. Oh, fun little side note, unimportant. Mr. is a female cat and Miss is a male rat.
Miss is male rat. Look at that. More gaslighting. Confusion. All confusion. We're just confusing everything. But yeah. And then she also says that her daughter names the animals, which is interesting. Oh
so what
gosh.
we've decided.
I had so many questions about that, right? If this comes back later, y'all, if we find out at some point that Cobell has like a daughter that no one saw, I mean, I don't think it will because we pretty much at this point has been inside her house and ain't nobody else
Right.
in
We know
there.
she lives alone, but it could happen in the future. I just really need this pregnant woman to come back into the storyline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I need her in there.
Well, so we'll end this part of the segment by rehashing a quote that ended up in the actual show.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Cobell's quote. We've already seen her drop these a lot, and she does it in the show as well, talking about her mother or her father or her husband and how they quote these isms, Cobellisms. So this is the one that actually is the same as the one in the show, with a little bit more to it. So she says to Mark, she says, Mark, my mother was an atheist. She used to say that there's good news and bad news about hell. The good news is that hell is the product of an overactive human imagination. The bad news is that what human beings can imagine, they can create. I think that hell is a world where you eternally obsess over where you'll be in 12 hours, where your marriage freezes to death in the shadow of your career. Mark, what if you could walk into work in the morning and skip straight to the quitting bell? Remove the anxiety of being a worker and only be a person. That's what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this version, she uses that quote to continue this pitch
Yeah.
to accepting severance.
And
I thought that was interesting.
yeah, I also thought it was very interesting that in the script we get two opposing mother quotes, right? And I thought it was kind of maybe another test of the severance process, whether or not it worked, right? Because they're conflicting stories. Earlier, her mother is a Catholic, and she's telling a wildly different story. And then this atheist one, like you mentioned, is the one we get in the show. So I was like, I wonder if, like, when she tells the Catholic anecdote, is it to see if there's any register of like Catholic? I thought you said your mom was atheist.
Yeah, you said she was an atheist.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Oh. Whew, y'all. All right. We'll fast track this next part because there's not a lot that's going on. But Mark leaves the house, realizes he's been gaslit for hours, is rightfully pissed off about it, and immediately goes to a police station, which is the proper reaction to being kidnapped and chained up in a basement.
Absolutely.
The unfortunate part, though, is he goes to the police office, he tells them what happened. They're like, okay, let's go to this place. Tell us where it is. We'll go talk to them. They get back to the home where Mark was, and there is no house.
Nope.
House is gone.
Nope.
Road is empty. Nothing's there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing that is still there is the stain on the pavement from the cat that was slayed.
Well, and there's an empty lot and there's a porta potty, like as if
the porta potty, that's
demo
right.
site. So maybe somebody is getting ready to build on that property. Maybe that's what it kind of looks like to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no house. Definitely no house.
And at this point, I know Mark is like, you've got to be kidding
right,
me.
Here he
I'm
is,
not crazy.
Getting gaslit again. These cops are like, bro, what are you talking about? You sound crazy. And he's just like, I was just in.
You should probably go lie down.
Yeah.
And so they basically are just like, so listen, we're going to let you sleep this off. We're just going to act like this didn't happen. And please don't report false reports anymore. Like,
right.
Go home. So Mark is just so put off, and he's just like, I know what I saw. I know what happened to me. I'm not crazy. And then he decides to examine this porta potty because he's just like, I don't know how a house turned into a porta potty, but there was a house here. I know that much. And as soon as he gets inside this porta potty, it's like Stanky Gets Smart, where like he's getting messages on the phone. Sorry, y'all. Like in the porta potty, and all of a sudden there's a conversation happening from a speaker in the porta potty. He's getting messages from Cobell in the porta potty. And I know he had to be cursing her every which way in that porta potty. And he's just like, how in the world did you do this? How did you remove the whole house? And she's like, can't tell you that, but isn't it interesting? A company that can make a whole house disappear? Don't you want to be a part of that? Sales pitch. Like,
no.
She's still pitching. Still pitching. If nothing else, all of these should be red flags. You make houses disappear.
Right.
You can find out personal information about a person in like 30 to 45 minutes. You can torture a rat and then make them believe that you're their best friend with a flip of a switch. These are all red flags. I don't want to work for you. No, it's a no. It's a no for me, dog.
No, thank you.
But no, Mark instead continues to prod about this job opportunity.
Yep.
And he's asking like, okay, but if I want to leave, can I? And, you know, what's the work I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Anyway, Cobell essentially says, listen, if you want this job and you want me to be there to walk you through it, just tell me when you step out of this porta potty, yay or nay, and a car will come to you. And he says yes. After all that we've been through, this man said, sure, why not?
Makes absolute no sense.
Make it make sense.
I don't know.
Make it make sense.
Again, because he's not widowed and he's just divorced, I'm like, try some therapy first, Mark. Like, it can't be that bad. Like, what? I don't understand his reasoning. Also, this whole just disappearing house thing was just so strange to me. And I understand, okay, it's the only house to be seen for miles. I guess I know you could demolish a house very quickly, but to get all of the remnants of it gone seems like not realistic. So this kind of put like a magical twist in my mind that is not in the show, that hasn't been in the script up until this point. And it felt like a Ryan Murphy too muchism, like here's another twist in a branch that we're going to open up with this disappearing house. And I just didn't like it. I was like trying to figure out what other way they could have, like maybe it would have been more gaslighty or more realistic to me if maybe the house was still there, but it was completely different family there. And like the cops go in and interview and they're like, we don't know who this person is. We've lived here for 30 years. We don't know
would have been interesting.
About. Like, I feel like that would have felt realer to me than this, the house just not being there altogether.
I mean, clearly there's a reason they didn't put this in the show. Maybe it was too much of a suspension of disbelief for people to buy into. The only thing I thought, because I was wondering about the same thing, like, how do you move a whole dang house? The only thing I could think was maybe it's not a house. Like, maybe it's like a set house where you only see the rooms I want you to see and everything else is just skeleton.
Yeah, maybe. Right, because that's easier to take.
I'm like, Mark was really only in 2 rooms. He came into the opening room from the door, got his pickle, got dosed. Then he was just in a basement,
right?
Which could have been anywhere.
Yeah, he wasn't conscious, so who knows if he actually like was taken down somewhere. The basement could have been the same room, just set up differently. That's true. That makes more sense.
So I'm like, I feel like that's the only way that, again, a whole house could just disappear is if it's not really a Victorian house. It's just made to look like it on the outside. I mean, that's still a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah. Well, now that we've been through this whole 5 days earlier situation, we jump back ahead to 4 days later. And we're back at the day of Mark's first day. And at this point, Mark is doing his new hire paperwork, essentially. So all we know is that 4 days... Oh, sorry. This is not Mark's first day. This is the day before Mark's first day.
Yes.
Mark is doing his new hire paperwork. He's getting ready to do his procedure. We see that the description for the table and stuff is still the same. It says Mark sits at a wooden table in a surgical gown, a thermometer in his mouth, and a sheet of paper in his hands. Milchick stands over him. So this is basically where they do their tape confessional. The difference is that in this version, they're in the surgical gown preparing to have their procedure versus the other version, and they're just in normal clothes. And honestly, we talked about that in the episode, how they do the surgery in their normal clothes. So there is no surgical gown. I don't know why they lost that.
Right.
There should be a surgical gown.
Right, there should be.
You should not be doing this procedure with brain chunks in your normal work attire. Oh, gosh. So Mark gets ready to read his prepared statement where he basically offers his waiver to undergo the severance procedure. This is when we finally hear it known as severance or spoken of as severance. Do you have the phrase there or the...
I do have the whole thing, and I did want to read it because it made me think of something else. So Mark picks up the paper and reads, "My name is Mark Scout. I have, at the suggestion of my employer, elected to undergo the procedure procedure colloquially known as severance. I give consent for my unconscious body to be transported to my workplace and my personal beacon activated, creating a new perceptual chronology. I understand that the skills required to perform my job will be implanted in the mind of my employed self, along with a cursory awareness of the outside world for conversational purposes. I will not henceforth seek knowledge of my outside life while at work, nor of my work life while at home. So, two things, and one just struck me as I was reading this right now, and one I had written down. So, I'll go with what I just noticed. I give consent for my unconscious body to be transported to my workplace and then have the beacon activated. So, in this world, are they being knocked out? Are their outies being knocked out and then brought to work every day rather than it being like them driving to the location so that their outies don't even know where
they
the
work.
job takes place? I didn't notice that the first time.
I didn't either.
And then the other thing, this kind of, and we did talk about this. I spoke about this as a theory, but when we discussed the questions in episode 2, after we heard the questions in episode 1, then we realized the Kier question, or in this case, the Mr. question, is kind of the test of the short-term memory. You had asked a question about why leave them with the knowledge of the outside world? Because we theorized that the US state question, name any state or territory, is to kind of, they still have that outside knowledge. And you were like, well, why leave them that? Why not just make them robots? And so this kind of answers that a little bit. It still doesn't really explain the why, but it does say like, so it's so they have a cursory knowledge to be able to make small talk in their work life, because they still need to interact with other people, which I thought was really interesting. So it's like, maybe this job can't be done just fully by like just robots who are like pressing.
Yeah, there must be an emotive component to it.
Yeah, an emotive component, a teamwork component. They still have to be able to build rapport with the people they're working with. And Helly mentions earlier that we need 4 to do this job. People. We can't do it with just 3. So I thought that was really interesting, because in Helly's video that we see, it doesn't have that line in it. Right. So it's a little bit different what she says, like the piece about explaining what severance is and that I'm here willingly and I've elected to do it is there, but that information is not there.
It is not. So this does fill it out a little more, and it does answer a few more questions than we had in the initial one. But like you said, not too many more, still kind of like,
right,
but slightly more. And so at this point, this is basically where things line up and sync up with where we last left Mark, which was in the video archive room. And he's seeing that statement on the screen. So he's realizing what this is. This is his awakening of like, oh, I'm trapped here, basically. I'm an alternate version of myself. And that's why I can't remember anything. He's just processing that whole thing. At this point, Milchick and Cobell have gotten inside the room, or did he come outside? I can't remember.
Let's see. So we cut to him finishing that statement right on the screen. And we hear Milchick like turn off the camera. So he's kind of staring there. Yeah, he walks out. So he walks out and Cobell and Milchick are just kind of waiting for him. So I think at that point they've like, well, he's found the archive. Let's just let him finish the video and we'll wait until he comes out on his own. And then he's like, when was that taken? And they tell him it was just that morning.
That is the end of, so that's the end of Act 4, but we have the final scene. So I guess this would be a 5th act or just a outro scene. But these two are very interesting, these moments that are happening here. So let's read them. We'll just let it linger with folks. On page 53.
Okay, yeah.
The final page. And I'll do scene direction. Do you want to be Cobell again?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so this is the final scene, guys. This is what we're left with in the script. Inside a dark hall at night, Cobell walks down a hallway, darker even than the one before. She rounds a corner and stops. Before her is a corridor so dark that the end is not visible.
He's gone.
A soft, raspy man's voice echoes down the hallway. Has he come to us defective?
No.
He's curious, like the other before him. Cobell looks at the floor, uncomfortable. We then cut to the inside of the lobby at night. Mark stands at the security station as a guard pats him down.
That won't happen again. This one may fight for a time, but he will choose us as his home.
And if he doesn't choose us? The guard waves Mark to the door. Mark stares at his reflection in the glass, then pushes the door open and exits. Darkness.
Then he'll have nothing left but the dark.
End of episode.
Dun, dun, dun.
Who is this man?
Right? So in this version, we get no mention of like you said, they don't say Lumen, they don't say the Egans, they don't say anything about this. But like, is this Kier? Like, is this like, is the, one before him Petey, right? Oh, Petey didn't acquiesce to what they were trying to do, so it was bad things, and they're trying to make sure Mark isn't going to do that too. Like, so many questions,
right? So many questions, you guys. But that is the pilot script, Good News About Hell, Severance 101. This is what got the ball rolling. This is what kicked everything off. And I get it.
Yeah, this version is not Good News About Hell. But this one's called Mr.
Oh, why does it? You know what's weird? On the tag for the PDF doc, it says Good News About Hell.
I know, it's wrong.
That's interesting.
But if you look at the first page, it's actually Mr.
Errors. Errors.
That was like, the cat seemed so unimportant. Why name it Mr.? I think it should have been named Miss. I think the rat is more important than the cat.
True. Yeah. Maybe Mr. just sounds more ominous. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Huh. Well.
It's like, who is Miss and how did they die? It'd be like, who missed who? No, who is Miss? Who's missed? Who is missed? Like, it's like, who's on first? Like, but yeah, so before we close, I just wanted to leave some time for any theories. Are there any theories that we've developed as a result of reading this pilot, or anything that's like jumping out now that we've gone through this?
I
mean, a lot of it happened as we were doing it for me.
Yeah,
anyway.
I was going to say, I think not anything other than what we've already said. I think the biggest thing that came out of this discussion for me was that they probably kept a lot of this in their minds as like character development for what we actually got for Mark. That seems like they're pulling from it, but not directly or explicitly. But at the same time, so much is so different. I just feel like if any theories based on this episode turned out to be true, that would be wild.
I mean, like you said, I wonder if anything from this pilot script might come back later in future episodes as we're finding out more about the characters. If any of these could be potential backstories that we get later. If we do, like you said, a flashback to Mark's introductory time to Lumen, if we do any flashbacks to Cobell or flash forwards, I wonder if those will play in. I do now feel like Helly's gonna be something of importance. I just keep thinking about, again, like this character having been originally a teenager when they started there, and how unorthodox that is, and that there has to be some superimposed reason as to why they are there. That just kind of builds on that thought in my head.
Right.
And then I'm also really now thinking more about these pregnancy aspects of the show.
Yes.
I didn't think about this much when I watched the show through initially, but now I'm like, whoa, like what is going on with the pregnancies?
Yeah, I honestly can't even remember if I noticed it the first time I watched through.
That one news clip, I didn't. I will say that. I didn't notice it until I watched it through this time. But there is a pregnancy storyline that is coming in the future.
Yeah, that's coming. Yeah, that's true.
That I didn't think so much about the pregnant aspect as much as like who those people might be or what they mean or if they're important or not.
Yeah.
That was more my thought the first go round, but now I'm thinking maybe this pregnancy part holds more weight than I'm
Very
realizing.
true. Very true.
Okay, guys, that's the episode this week.
What a ride.
Thank you for rocking with us. Thank you for hanging in there with us. If we have the ability, we will post the pilot script. If you, for some reason, can't Google it, or you just happen to be looking at the show notes, we'll have it linked in there as well where you can read it. You know, it's only 53 pages. It's not that long a read. Definitely worth looking at. And maybe if you want to go through it and listen to the episode at the same time, that might be worth it as well. It's definitely, I think, a good read just for funsies. Because one, like we said, how it fills out some of the characters a little more than what we got in the episode so far. Mm-hmm. And two, just to see just the process of like pilot presentation to show. Like, a lot changes, a lot gets flipped around, seeing what people decide to keep and what people decide to toss. Like, I think sometimes folks are inclined to think, and I'm speaking for myself when I was a novice, that things kind of come, ready. Like what we see in the show must have been what I envisioned. Like that has to be verbatim what happened. And then you realize, oh, wait, this has been through several rewrites. Several changes of hands, someone weighed in and decided this is worth keeping, this isn't. And I just think it's interesting to see the beginnings of something like this, especially shows like these that become so iconic, and see where it started and what got the ball rolling, and then where it's kind of snowballed from there. All right. Well, you guys, we are signing out for today. Thank you for joining us. And this has been the UUR. And remember, if you don't choose us, you'll have nothing left but the dark.
Insert creepy music here.
Ooh, theremin. Thank you guys for rocking with us through this blast from the past episode. If you enjoyed it as much as we did, or even if you didn't, tell us about it. You can find us on all the socials at the UUR Pod. This includes Instagram, TikTok, Lemonade, Blue Sky, or Threads. You can also email us at theuurpod@gmail.com. We'd also like to shout out our very generous, dedicated patrons. We love you guys. Thank you for hanging with us over at Patreon. And guess what? It's not too late to become a member. You can check out all the different tier memberships over at patreon.com/theuurpod. Every little bit helps us grow, and we appreciate it all. But if Patreon doesn't strike your fancy, a positive review, a 5-star rating, or clicking that subscribe button is always appreciated. Listen, it all helps us grow and develop this community and helps our podcast expand and become bigger, better, more awesome. That's what we want to bring for you guys. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us between floors, and we'll see you next time. Bye.